A young woman leaves a hotel lobby in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She texts her boyfriend in Rochester, New York, complaining about her friends on the beach trip, but suddenly, her text stopped. Alarmingly, 2 hours later, her phone pings off of a cell tower in McClellanville, 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. The 17-year-old was not seen or heard from again. What happened to Brittanee Drexel? Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is a popular spring break location for high school and college students, taking a break from the daily grind of classes and work. 60 miles of sandy beaches, a boardwalk with carnival rides and games, and an abundance of restaurants and bars attract thousands of spring breakers each season. April 25, 2009 was Brittanee Drexel's last day of spring break in Myrtle Beach. She had left her group of friends to return to their hotel to shower and change after a day at the beach. She leaves the Bar Harbor Motel on Ocean Avenue and begins walking back to the Ocean Blue Resort to get her flip-flops from a friend, Peter. 15 minutes later, her friend Jennifer called and they argued about a pair of shorts that Brittanee was wearing. Jennifer wanted them back, so Brittanee began walking back to the Blue Harbor Motel, texting with her boyfriend, John Gryko, who had stayed in Rochester along the way. Brittanee was upset with Jennifer and the other friends who took her to Myrtle Beach. As she walked back along Ocean Avenue, she texted John complaining about their treatment of her. In fact, at 8:58 p.m., she texted John that she wanted to just pack and stay in the hotel room for the night. This is the last text she would ever send. John continues texting Brittanee, getting no response, which immediately alarms him. 10 minutes after Brittanee stops responding, John calls Brittanee's mother in Rochester and reveals that Brittanee had secretly gone to Myrtle Beach and was now not responding to texts or answering the phone. Brittanee Drexel was born on October 7, 1991, to young teenagers Dawn Wagner and John Kiyaoglu. Her biological father moved to Florida, but she reunited with him in 2008. Dawn went on to marry Chad Drexel, who adopted Brittanee. In an interview following her disappearance, Chad explains, "I'm the only father Brittanee has ever known." Brittanee was a lively and popular girl. She played soccer and planned on studying cosmetology after high school. She had a rare eye disorder that left her blind in one eye, and she always wore contacts to keep that eye from wandering. These contacts often led people to comment on her strikingly blue eyes. However, Brittanee's junior year at Gates Chili High School in Rochester had been difficult. Her parents, Dawn and Chad, divorced. She experienced problems with depression and her grades were suffering. When spring break came around, she begged her mother to let her go celebrate spring break with some friends in Myrtle Beach. Dawn responded with a firm no because these friends were older and no adults would be present. In a later interview, Dawn describes their argument. "I told her I just felt something was going to happen to her. I just felt it." Dawn and Brittanee came to an agreement. Brittanee could spend a few days with a friend in Rochester and go to the beach at Lake Ontario. Despite this agreement, Brittanee went with her new friends to Myrtle Beach on April 25th. She even called her mother on the 26th, telling her that she was at the beach. Brittanee and her boyfriend John Gryko were in constant contact through text messages. He was especially worried about her since she had gone off to Myrtle Beach without her mother's permission. When she suddenly stopped texting him in the middle of a conversation, he knew something was wrong. John wasted no time in alerting her parents of the problem. He called Dawn and informed her that Brittanee had snuck away to Myrtle Beach and had suddenly stopped responding to texts and calls. Dawn, Chad, and the group of friends she went with had no success in reaching her either. Dawn contacted the Rochester police to find out the best way to engage with the Myrtle Beach police. Needing to file the police report in person, Dawn contacted a friend in North Carolina who drove to Myrtle Beach to file the initial police report. Dawn left the next morning, driving 800 miles from Rochester to Myrtle Beach. Dawn also tried contacting the friends Brittanee left with, but they did not answer. Police began the investigation by interviewing the people Brittanee had traveled with, and with Peter Brozowitz, who she met at the Blue Water Resort before walking back to her hotel room at the Bar Harbor. None of these people raised any alarm bells for investigators. Police also ruled out the idea that Brittanee left on her own accord since her clothing, makeup, and other belongings were left in the hotel room. Police found that the last trace of Brittanee was on a security camera as she was leaving the Blue Water Resort Hotel at 8:48 p.m. At 8:58, Brittanee sent a text to John saying she was just going to go back to her hotel and pack instead of going out. At 8:59, John asked her why, but she does not reply to any more texts or calls. Brittanee's phone pings off several cell towers over the next few hours. Surfside at 9:27 p.m., Morrell's Inlet at 9:33 p.m., Pawleys at 9:41 p.m., and Georgetown at 9:54 p.m. Based on the speed at which her phone enters each tower's range, police could tell that she was in a vehicle. The last place that her phone pinged was in McClellanville, 60 miles away. The final ping from her phone was still in McClellanville at 11:57 p.m. on April 25th. At that point, her phone battery died or the phone was shut off. Because she was not seen on a traffic camera on the way back to her hotel, police believed that Brittanee was picked up by someone in a vehicle. The group of friends that Brittanee traveled to Myrtle Beach with, and Peter Brozowitz and his friends, did not stay in Myrtle Beach to help look for Brittanee. They returned to Rochester abruptly, avoided talking to Dawn, and hired lawyers. The Myrtle Beach police had completed multiple searches for Brittanee, following up on even the leakest of leads. Over the course of the investigation, two suspects emerged: Timothy Deshawn Taylor and Raymond Moody. 2016 brought a possible break in the case for the FBI. A jailhouse informant implicated Timothy Sean Taylor and his son Timothy Deshawn Taylor in Brittanee's kidnapping, assault, and death. The inmate, Taquan Brown, reported that he had seen Brittanee being held at a stash house in McClellan. He claimed to have witnessed her being sexually assaulted, killed, and dumped in an alligator pit to dispose of her body. Federal investigators took this story seriously and investigated the Taylor family, the suspected stash house, and the miles of swampland. Their efforts turned up nothing related to Brittanee Drexel. At the time of Brittanee's disappearance, Tim Taylor, the son, was 16 years old. He weighed only 100 pounds and furthermore only has one arm. The accusation was baseless, but when the investigation hit the media, it ruined the Taylor family's lives. They lived under a cloud of suspicion until the real killer was caught in 2022. Raymond Moody was identified as a potential suspect in Brittanee's case because of his listing on the sex offenders registry. The day after she disappeared, Moody was stopped in Surfside, South Carolina, where Brittanee's phone had pinged, for speeding, and officers noticed scratches on his face. A friend and former romantic partner recalls that Moody came to his house a couple of days after Brittanee disappeared, and his face and neck were badly scratched. In 2011, Raymond Moody is identified as a person of interest in the case. A registered sex offender, Moody had served 21 years in prison for the sexual assault of a young girl in California. In 2012, Moody's girlfriend, Angel Valsi, was also interviewed but indicated she knew nothing about Brittanee Drexel. She did report that he was abusive and dreamed about committing murder. Police Captain David Nippes reported that investigators had searched Moody's hotel room at the Sunset Lodge, where he lived in 2011, in connection with the investigation into Brittanee's disappearance and presumed murder. Moody was arrested on May 4, 2022, on an obstruction of justice charge issued on the day Brittanee went missing. It is unclear whether this charge is related to Brittanee's case. In 2022, police interviewed Angel Valsi under a pro-offer statement. In this interview, Valsi revealed more about what happened to Brittanee Drexel on April 25, 2009. Prosecutors and police built a case to charge Valsi as an accessory, then used it as leverage to charge Moody instead. Moody volunteered the story of Brittanee's death. Moody and Valsi would drive on Ocean Avenue, smoking marijuana when they saw Brittanee. He claimed she was interested in smoking marijuana with him and got into the car. He remembers that her phone kept going off, but that she didn't answer it, though he didn't prevent her from doing so. Moody then drove them to a campground in Georgetown County, near McClellanville. According to Valsi, this was a place he had prepared ahead of time, a tent out in the country he could use for sexually assaulting young girls. After smoking marijuana at the campground, Valsi left. Moody took advantage of her absence and forced Brittanee to remove her clothing. He then raped her. After he realized the implications of what he had done, Moody told detectives, "I was scared and she was scared." He claims to have panicked and then strangled her. Moody carried her body to another location in the woods and buried her. He put her clothes in a donation bin and threw her phone into the river. Police report that Moody's information is accurate, and they were able to find Brittanee's remains exactly where he said they were. Moody, now age 62, pled guilty to murder, kidnapping, and first-degree criminal sexual conduct. He has a life sentence for murder and 30 years each for kidnapping and criminal sexual conduct. He will never be released from prison. He is not proud of the crimes he committed, saying, "I was a monster. I was a monster then, and I was a monster when I took Brittanee Drexel's life." In June of 2023, the family of Brittanee Drexel held a memorial in her hometown to celebrate and remember her life. Friends and family gathered to share stories and say goodbye to the vibrant young girl who they lost 13 years ago. Since the family has laid Brittanee to rest, they have a small sense of closure. Dawn, Brittanee's mother, uses her social media platforms to advocate for missing persons cases. Brittanee's friend, Tara Friedman, wants to remember Brittanee as the bright, beautiful soul that she was. Her personality, her smile, her energy. "I don't want people to look at her as the victim. She was, and it was a tragic circumstance, but Brittanee was so much more." Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below.